everyone. Welcome to All the Forbidden Things. This is the show where we talk about the things that we're not talking about or ways that we're not talking about them. Today, I am joined by Elisa Neven-Pugh. She is a motivational speaker, a life coach, and a disability advocate. And she is the author of For Heaven's Sake, Get on the Board. Get on the boat. For heaven's sake, get on the boat. And she and I are going to be talking about the disabled community and the able-bodied community and how they have interacted and what that relationship is like, and maybe some things we can do to improve that relationship. So without further ado, Eliza, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Well, I was born with cerebral palsy, quadriplegia. I know that's a mouthful. You can also just say I have CP, and I'm a quad, and I'm very adventurous, so that works. But always ask the person before you shorten anything. Some people like the full title, others a bit more playful with it. But yeah, CP quadriplegia, and I was born like this. As a Christian, I like to say I was created like this. So it's just like, and my parents raised me the same as my sister. Like, I was not, forbidden from dating. I was not forbidden from the regular things of a teenager. So I hate to bore your audience, but other than a few extra appointments throughout the years, my life was pretty typical. Actually, what makes it extraordinary is that it was so typical despite the quadriplegia. Like, my parents took me out hiking, skiing. I have ski rig, so it's pretty. And we've gone on lots of vacations. So actually, despite everything, I've had pretty amazing childhood, but it's not necessarily because of my cerebral palsy, but more because of the people who have interacted with and how they've responded to it.
And do you feel like your parents obviously set the tone there. Do you feel like you have a fairly unique experience compared to others that, that have CP?
I do, in the sense that there's a lot of people out there that their limitations kind of define. Like, it's just kind of like, I have this, and that's and it's a big deal for some of them, and for me it's just like, it just is, it's how I was born, so I know nothing else. Like, and this is one of the forbidden things is I've noticed with a lot of it is that people tend to think that having a disability means the child won't be able to do much, don't have big expectations sometimes. And my parents were kind of like, that's not gonna happen. We're getting treated the same way as her sister. And there was a lot of times I went to a summer camp when I was a teenager. And there were a lot of times where it would just be like, well, the caregivers would be talking, and you could just see how the parents were custodians of their children, but not necessarily active in their lives. And like, they would just wait for the caregiver to show up. And you could tell that week at camp was like, woohoo! Because they actually got to do like a ton of stuff. And so, in a way, it was a very unique experience, and the opportunities I was given in the belief I was given, and like just saying, I know many parents who are like my parents as well. I just know many parents on the other side too. So it's just very interesting that way. I often feel like I straddle many worlds because my experience was unique in how my body moved through it, but other than that, it was pretty average. I, I joked recently that the only time I think my parents kind of jokingly regretted um when me became same as my sister was dating because I was the emotional one of the two of us. Like I was the one and the hopeless romantic. But my parents still let me do it. They still let me try, and that's a very important thing.
Mm.
Is letting the child be in the being the world and see what works, what doesn't. Because if you and it goes for able blind people, I'm sure too. Like if you let the child fall, they learn how to get back up again. Eventually, sometimes they fall like a million times in the same same way, and the parents get like, oh my god, just learn the lesson. And I'm sure I'm being fabby for some parents right now. Like, yes, thank you. That is exactly what I'm going through with my child when I'm moving on. But just that sense of we've gone through this before, but if you believe in the child on time, they will get up that 100th time and be able to move forward. Because that's what my parents basically um be- believed is like anything you let the child learn, you help them, you guide them, but you help them grow into their own person. And that's the part that I feel a lot of where my story is unique in that I had that support network from the very beginning. And especially since I was born 3 months premature, you know, my parents could have had every reason to be like, save the baby, and like just protect the baby, protect the kid. And sometimes, to be honest, I think subconsciously that does come up, but that's completely visual, which kind of leads into the rest of the conversation because I find a lot of people with disabilities see people who are quote unquote average and they're like they go on a scan, blah 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 blah, and it's just like they do if we give them a chance. If we don't let them learn, they'll never change. Um, technically, what is your view on disability and
Well,
how people are treated?
so first of all, I want to ask you at some point, whether it was difficult that your parents expected a lot out of you. Whether there were times where you kind of were like, hey, but can you treat me a little differently? Because I need more help than my brothers or sisters on X, Y, or Z. So that's something I'd be interested to know.
That that's a misnomer. Is that was a mistake on my part. Like it wasn't that they wouldn't give me the extra help. All I'm saying was they didn't necessarily put the limitations on me before I even started.
That makes
Like
sense. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I wasn't suggesting that they weren't caring for you in any special needs that you had. I just mean that sometimes it feels like, I think sometimes when we're at a disadvantage in either things that I have dealt with my health or just even different types of minority status, you sort of feel like you want an extra leg up sometimes because you're like,
yes,
You know, come on,
yeah,
have a break. My life is harder. Like, give me a break. And have you ever had those moments privately where you're like, okay, but can you be a little bit nicer to me?
a little bit, but I think that this is really getting into the part, because I'm usually like, just my parents are, woo, because I do know the blessings that they gave me, but, sometimes, yeah, sometimes, and it's not just, um, my parents per se, it's more the general population. It's like, okay, yeah, I know you like it when I'm strong, you like it when I have the big inspirational story, but when I'm vulnerable and say, I'm really stiff today, you make me feel like I have to say that's aggressive language. What they do is they project instead of true compassion that just sticks with somebody. I either get people trying to fix it or saying, yeah, that must suck. It happens to the best people. And it's then they make me feel like my disability is a curse, right? And it's not a curse. It's just how it is. It's just, I was giving a bit of a heavy assignment when it comes to learning bias acceptance. Like, it's not that I want to walk, it's when people just, if they try and fix it or they make me, put me in a position where I have to defend, well, it's not that bad. Like, you're making it sound like it's absolutely horrible. And it's like something I'll never be able to like manage. And that's the part where I get frustrated, is that, yeah, sometimes I just want to have a day where I'm like soaring and not told, you'll be able to fulfill this. And sometimes I just want to be like, for close relatives at least, I just want to be taken out to dinner, you know? um, that sort of thing. Or watch my favorite movie with some popcorn. And I should ask for those things, but sometimes I wish I didn't have to ask. I wish somebody would just go, I'm taking you out for Girls Weekend. you know? But at the same time, if I focus on those things, then I see where people don't ask. Like, sometimes I think we get so caught up in what we wish was there, or we wish what other people would do, that we don't necessarily see that they are doing that just in their own way that works for them. Like, yes, sometimes I wish my dad wouldn't go into fix it mode sometimes, but I have to realize that he was a first responder for 29 years, a firefighter, so his job was, somebody's in trouble and to literally go fix it. So when I get frustrated, it's like, but that's his job. That's literally his brain when something goes awry, and especially when it's your kid, you just want to fix it. And I think that's one of the forbidden things we don't talk about, is seeing the other person's side. When we're a minority, we don't, I, I understand the question you're just asking, there's nothing wrong with it, but we often say, I wish other people would do this. Well, how do we want to be around other people? If, to use the example, if I want to be taken out to dinner, I have to go to somebody and say, hey, when I'm sad, I really appreciate when people just take me out and spend some extra quality time with me. That's my love language So would be okay with you if I ask you to take me out sometimes. You know, that responsibility is up to me. And I think in this time of um more social awareness, people with disabilities, and this is just my view, I'll ask you using a sec, but in my view, we've lost the ability as minorities to really give what we are asking. We've lost the ability to give respect. We've lost the ability to see the other side and to see what's like for mainstream people to be confronted with our issues. And we've lost the ability to still give people hope. We just tell people what they're doing wrong and just storm away. Now that's liable for anyone, but as people minorities, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are the representative of a group when people see us. So that's why I get cautious when I talk about I wish, because I do know, at least for myself, I have agency to change my situation. And 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 not just to be like, okay, what's the problem I'd like to ask to be solved, but also how am I contributing to this issue? Am I not speaking up enough? Am I acting like I don't care when I really need some more time with my folks, for example? Even though I'm a family girl, so it's like when I spend too much alone, I'm like, I need my parents, you know, or oppositely, if I'm not feeling up for it, I'm just like, I'm gonna be in my room for a while, so you guys don't have to deal with the emotions I'm going, and it's not that I have to hide from them, but I do have to be honest about it and say, it's not nice to be around people who are, my life is this, I wish it was this, I have to be, like, I just want people to understand that gratitude is important, but what is your perspective on this? Because I'm very curious.
Gosh, yeah, this is very honest. I think sometimes we can identify with, and I do this in a lot of areas of my life. I'm one of those drama queens that like kind of loves a tragic story, and I love being the heroine of a tragic story. And I'm not
Yes,
I'm not the worst out there, okay? But I'll admit to sometimes having those moments. It's like there's something about it that almost makes your life feel meaningful. Like if you're the subject of a tragedy, then you're not just somebody who has a lot of extra work to do. You're someone really meaningful, you know? And
absolutely, yes, I get you,
yeah.
I give that all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard cuz it's like if you see that one person has like a bigger rock to carry in this life, then you're like, "Well, we're all supposed to kind of like help you carry that." Well, where is the line there? Because if you're the one with the heavy rock, asking asking for people to help you carry it is one thing, but walking through the world feeling as if they owe it to you to carry it, that every specific person you come across owes it to you to carry it and to
Yes,
treat you special and all those things, that's challenging, that's hard, that's where it gets like other people may not have the reaction that you want.
yeah, I've seen a lot of that victim mentality of like, school, and I've lived through that. There's still some things in my life that happened 7 years ago that I still use as an excuse to be the victim because it is addicting, because you get to pretend that you don't have any responsibility for the way people might be treating you. I'm not saying, can I use kind of a political example? Just what's going on
Please.
in Canada. The Alberta government kind of stinks right now. They really don't care about social programming. They're highly conservative, and so my apologies to my conservative friends because I know a lot of lovely people, but this probably isn't the best. They all need to see the heart doctor really, but the point is, um, they mess a lot with our funding. And our funding is taken away, even if it's given by the federal government. That happening for the past 3 years. That's been a problem. And I'm not saying it's the disability community's fault that this happened, because no, it's a bunch of crap by these people who don't know our situation. But the fact that we didn't really see a lot of big protests and we just talked, and it's like we make the situation worse by just commiserating every week in these advocacy groups. Like we just complain, and then the money gets taken away, and they're like, "This is an outrage." And I'm like, "When they gave it to us 6 months ago, you said it wasn't enough. You kept complaining on the news, on the uh, everywhere you could, that it wasn't enough and that it wasn't injustice, and so if I see the government like parents. If a child keeps complaining, they're not gonna give more allowance. They're just gonna be like, "Nope, sorry, kid. If you can't be grateful, like, why would you give more money to people just complaining?" Like, yes, it was a crappy move, but like, yeah, when the rock is bigger, sure, you have the right to say I'm hurting, but you don't have the right to crap all over people. Like you just don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's like biting the hand that feeds you. When I do that, it's like if I'm getting angry, I'll even use the example of like women and men, right? I feel, you know, throughout my life there have been, experiences where I have felt like angry at men and the patriarchy and all that. It's um no, oh, haven't we all? But I specifically have, it's just I took it on as a wound. And um and then you're like, you get mad at men, like there's the man hating and the anger and the whatever, and it's like, but if I need you to be kinder to me or more respectful to me or offer me more opportunities, it's not like that I need to manipulate you, but turning you into Satan is not going to help my cause. Like it's
You
literally
know,
like, what are you going to, the person that holds what you feel is the power over you, you're certainly not going to get what you want by, throwing tomatoes at them.
no. That's the thing. I was looking at these lovely hurting people, and I love what you just said there. I gave myself a wound, like, and they would just be like, keep picking at, and I'm like, you're not helping, because I was more, like, I grew up memorizing Martin Luther King, Gandhi, like all the people who focused on unity, and really celebrating when people did listen to the cause. And so when I saw this kind of but the hand that feeds you behavior, I'm like, this is not gonna help us. And it was really frustrating because I'm like, we're the voice of the people. Advocacy groups are supposed to be the voice of the people, and what you're representing is this angry despair, and it's just like you said, it's not gonna help. It's not gonna create gatekeepers. We have to see kindness as and positivity as an adaptation that we use to what's the less dramatic word here? We have to find a way to live our life to the fullest, and I'm gonna say this: we have to find a way to survive. And if honey definitely helps us get needs, and the flies that we need, I don't know where that expression came from, but it's stuck with me since I was 5. You know, I've definitely caught more flies with honey than with vinegar, especially with my advocacy, my work. So I honestly feel that we are missing the opportunity and using kindness as like this adaptation to move advocacy forward, because we focus on the wound too much.
Yeah, it's hard to because there's the devil's advocate argument to what we're saying, which is not necessarily that you need to pull out the vinegar, but that like there's in minority communities, there's like people who suck up and are like, well, the closest thing I can ever do is get on the coattails of the person who's at the top, and like I'll just try to align myself with or please, or there's like the idea of fawning behavior. But what we're talking about, I just kind of want to clarify for listeners and myself, and I just state it, is not oh, I want to suck up to you, I want to win you over, I want to be nice to you because you're in control. It's I know I'm your equal, and I am going to treat you with respect because I expect respect in return.
Yes.
And I am going to be kind because I have the ability to be kind. And, not seeing them as like a power figure, but seeing them as or a privileged figure, but seeing them as somebody that's like, okay, I might need something from you. I'm going to ask it in a respectful way so you can respect me back.
Yes. And also too, when we look back at the heroes of history, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and Malcolm X, and those very powerful people, we look at those individuals and we're struck by their diplomacy. Like, Malcolm X took a while to get there, but after his trip to Mecca, he shifted his viewpoint. And that's what we remember most. And sometimes when it comes to the people who stayed in the same anger that Malcolm had before his trip to Mecca, we remember them, but not in the best way. We remember them as a warning, not an example to follow. And I got this from Ryan Holiday. I forget which book, but it was like, do you want to be a warning or do you want to be an example? And I'm definitely like, I want to be the example part, what to do instead of what not to do, And I think people forget that kindness can be the most powerful thing if you want it to be long lasting, if you want to last beyond what you genuinely did. And true kindness is being assertive in your own space. Like, I've definitely come to learn that true kindness is being able to say to a friend, I love you, I care for you very much, but this behavior, is I love you so much that I trust you enough to give you this constructive criticism. That's true kindness in my opinion. And I know I'm saying you don't have any kids yet, but I think that's the same thing with parenting too. It's a kindness to the parents to give their kids some discipline, so when they get older, they're not the kid that everybody goes, it's them, it's this, it's Rich, like the one that you just go, oh, it's the trust fund baby, even if they go on the trust fund, you know what I'm talking about. I see you smile, but you know what? Like that's a thing where kindness and being a bit more tough sometimes is really more kind, because that kindness will last more into the future. Like I often say to my parents now, that especially my mom, because when I was a teenager, I was like, Mom, you have no idea. Like I was that kind of teenager. You have no idea what I'm going through. And some of it was true. And we both come to realize both our parts. But at the same time, I've come up to a couple times and been like, Mom, it may have gotten scared at the time, but now I really appreciate, when you would tell me, like, tell me some things about my ability to be patient, listen, whatever, because now that I've got those locked down, it makes me a person to be listened to and be patient with. And it's because she didn't let me, and nor did my dad. My parents never let me do the whole what's known as a honeymoon handicap, where it's like, I have a disability, or your friend where it was like, I have a disability, so get me, a toy or whatever it was, like just milking it. I was never allowed to milk it in my life. And, I really appreciate that, because when people do something nice for me, it feels like a true gift instead of this entitled, I deserve this, so I'm not gonna feel gratitude for it, because this is what you said at the beginning beautifully. You owe me something, because I was just born like this, and it's like, no, people's actions are a consequence of my behavior. Maybe not on the political scale, but if I'm rude to somebody and they treat me like I'm just gonna give you the services that I'm required to give you and that's it, I shouldn't be offended because I was rude. And it's by, like, I'm just really grateful that I grew up in a home that really, really drove home the idea of consequences and actions and behavior, and didn't let me use my disability as a reason to be a jerk to my friends. And and I think there's so much. It's like, do you know Monty Python and the Life of Brian?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, the Jewish zealots are talking, and they're like, what have the Romans given us? And then of course they go into like, oh, they gave us clean water, they gave us, architecture, they gave us culture, but what have they really given us? And so the joke is, they've actually given you a bit, and that you wouldn't have without them. And it's the same when I think we get stuck in our teenage brains of what has life given me, and if you just sit back and see what your parents or your community has given you, I think that would help us manage our chronic pain, our minority status better than always focus on what we lack. And that's not just coming from this many self-help books on my shelf, but also the life experience of when I focus on what I don't have, my spasms are legitimately a lot more stiff than when I'm in a space of gratitude and focusing on the true love my parents gave me, rather than focusing on the moments when, like every single parent on the planet, they make mistakes, So yeah, I think that's just it. Like the whole premise of we've got to focus on what we have and what we still can achieve, but from a place of if we were able to get this, I'm sure we can get more, and especially if we treat people with kindness in a way that will extend our impact long after we're gone.
One thing that was coming to my mind there is that I think sometimes people have fears that they can only get so far with kindness. And I think if you take this into, let's say, a very political realm and outside of really necessarily minority status, but where you're like, okay, we've tried to be the nice guy to get this thing passed or this bill passed, or like what you're dealing with on the government front. But then we've got to take to the streets at some point and put our anger out there, and then people kind of try that, and it's obviously everything we've said that it is. And then it's I think in today's literally 2026, at least in America, there is this almost cynicism of okay, but does even kindness work? And so I'm interested in what your thoughts are, how you respond. Let's say somebody does treat you poorly, or how do you suggest people sort of have, let's say, that idea of a warrior for X cause, where they are very strong and assertive but still kind?
Well, I'll use an example. When I started on YouTube, my title was Feminist Gun Wheels, and there was this one comment that said, "I am feminist, let me call for mom," because they saw I was in the bedroom saying, and so instead of getting all, I just wrote an essay on what limits people's ability to live outside the house if they have disabilities, like the safety and the economics, basically a university paper on you possibly couldn't have known this, but here's the situation, and here's the address if you want to help change this, here's the group, basically. And if you don't want to help, please refrain from leaving such comments. And I never got another comment from that person again or something like it, because I think people read my response and were like, yeah,
You tell them.
because it wasn't new, because I acknowledged what I think. How you can be kind by assertive is acknowledging where someone is at, explaining your side, and then giving them options. And like I said, then giving them, if you don't do this, here's the consequence, for lack of a better word right now, and here's what I prefer you do. but not making them feel like an idiot, just giving them the facts. I think we often think as minorities that if we go full like artillery mode with the facts, we either go too emotional, calling somebody, big generalizations, and I've done it, or we just blindside them with all the facts without not necessarily knowing that they've never known these facts before. They've never experienced them. So to meet them again where they're at, like me saying, you couldn't possibly have known this, but here's the situation that puts them in a position where they're thinking, actually, yeah, I didn't know all this, and I'm like, it's definitely, I think when people, when we need to get kind as advocates, I see kind as like being gracious, because grace sees the situation for what it is, gives a person a bit more wiggle room in their life, but it still can hit God's grace, however it looks, can still hit you like bam, like it can still come at you it's not a soft okay, I'm just gonna leave you alone. It's like, no, this is the mirror I'm gonna have you looking right now, and you might not like what you see, but I'm gonna be as gentle as I can after. And so being truly kind is allowing ourselves to be grace filled, and grace isn't just for Christianity. Grace is like just allowing somebody to be where they're at, but also being brave enough to say, this is where I'm at, and this is what needs to happen, because grace acknowledges with love the humanness in the situation and allows us to be human, but still encourages us to grow, at least in my brief experience. What's your view on that? Like, I'm okay if you don't agree, I'm just saying in my experience, but how do you feel?
Yeah, I I always take the approach of I like your approach better than mine. Um, I often take the approach of I don't respond to any energy that isn't positive. So this is a skill I learned from somebody that I've been close with for several years, and it's like when somebody presents a story, like a narrative, and they're trying to tell you, I'm you're a bad person, or so and so's a bad person, or this happened to me, and they're trying to win you over to this idea of something. Maybe it's at you that you're a bad person. Then if you push back and try to argue with them about it, like in a defensive way, then you're still reinforcing that something about the framework of that story, the plot, the characters in it was in any way valid. And so you're then creating an opportunity for the person to respond again, and you're sort of feeding this entity of what they created that you don't even necessarily agree to the premise. So I will often, at least like online with comments and things, I'll often just let the thing go into the void and not land. But I think there's a difference when we're talking about advocacy, or when we have a cause that we want to push forward, or something that we actually do need people to know more about, or we like do need like to get more ground on it. It's not just like, oh, I'm not going to take personal offense that you don't like the way I look or something. um so I think it's a choose your battles moment, but if I were to do a
Yeah,
hybrid of your approach and mine, it would be very much like, what is the point of me responding? Is this an opportunity where I can provide information that's going to be valuable even to the next person who comes across and reads it, and then how do I do that? So yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree. Because as I said before, um, sometimes I get so frustrated when I see somebody who's really not that nice, and it's the same in Christianity too. I grew up in I'm a part of a very open church in Canada. Like we are just so open that the town church, like the other churches are looking at us like really, because we welcome LGBTQ. We're basically like if you believe in kindness, like the fruits of the spirit, so kindness, um, self-control, and the other five that I'm forgetting right now. But very open church, and so for me, um, that openness is always this part of it. We have to be kind. So when I see the cringy, um, kind of prosperity gospel, I'm sorry, but those cringy relatives, as I like to say in the States, I'm just kind of like, we must be reading different books, because what I'm reading is love. What you're reading is power and control. Your power, your control. Like, and so, but at the same time, it comes from a lot of pain. But yeah, when you're not kind, um, in advocacy, whether it's advocating for a cause or an institution like the church, you have to, again, meet people where you're at, but still be strong enough to say, no, this is what we believe. Because my church is very open, but we still see Christ as the head. We still see the the whole nativity and the crucifixion and resurrection as historical events. Um, we just don't turn you away if you're not there yet. My minister always says, um, wherever you are in the journey, welcome to, the church. And it's just like, welcome to St. Andrews. Like, wherever you are, however you identify, just come in, and it's just to be, and I think that's where I get a lot of my examples of advocacy is from the church, because again, we're very kind and we're very accepting, but there are some certain things that if you're not kind, if you're just wanting to give your own sermon at the coffee fellowship, we we don't turn people away. We're not one of those. We're very open, and so that's the boundary we actually have, is when people get too conservative. My minister gently pushes back and says we need to draw the circle wide. I've even gotten some of those emails because I'm a newbie, and I, I still listen to other, like, he encourages you listen to, like, to just be yourself. So sometimes his social political view gets in the way of one of my favorite verses and about faith, and it's not gets in the way, but to be able to stand in that tension is a very powerful thing, and it makes me grow more as a Christian and as a human being. So I think one of the key things is to be able to stand in our personal values, but also like have that firm foundation as the script as my chosen faith. Scriptures say have that firm foundation, but have windows that open. You don't have to let everything in, but just let some fresh air into the house. And that's what I think we need to do with advocacy, because a lot of these advocacy groups have been established for so long, and some of the people are still there, so it's kind of stuck in line. But this is the way we've always done things, and it's like we need some fresh opinion, even from the other side, you know. And with advocacy, that's also very much needed because it's like if we don't have opinion from the other side of what we're doing, that we keep making the same mistakes. Obviously what we're doing is not reaching the general public. Maybe we need to talk to the general public and see what they actually feel. Yeah, instead of saying able-bodied people will never understand, and if they do want to join, they have to go through this rigorous process that they only get chosen if they think like the group already, and I'm like, that's not good. That's not good.
Mm,
That's groupthink. That's literal groupthink.
yeah, that means a lot to hear. What do you want to take a stab quickly at what I might have experienced of or perceive of the disabled community?
Yes, that is my next question to you.
Yeah. Do you want to take a guess?
That they're grouchy?
No, I actually found it really interesting when I heard you talking about some of the feelings from the disabled community towards the able-bodied community. I definitely, in general, feel that certain minority groups, well, every one of our minority groups that exist, have this problem, but I can feel it more acutely from certain ones where it's like you got the okay, you got the label wrong, or you did the thing wrong, or you did, and it's like there's rules that I don't know how to follow, that I walk
Exactly.
in without the book, and then I'm getting graded on a test no one told me what to study for. um
Exactly. They like I find that people nitpick at your answers that you never got a chance to study for. Like for example, people often get mad because don't call me a disabled person, because use person with, or so one woman who was like, don't use person with, use disabled.
I know, I've
Like
heard both.
or people, or poor able-bodied people, because we can't even decide which language we like. You know, with some minorities, it's like this is the new word that we've all agreed upon is the most appropriate. But with the disabled community, it's almost like some people like it, some people don't. You know, and it's just like this. It's like having a party, and forgive me if you have diet restrictions. Okay, to the audience, but it's like having somebody show up and having these people continually show up, and putting you can have the like snaps when one person's going, I'm not gluten free, I'm gluten intolerant, or like just this really sim- syntax within lost in the syntax, and we need to worry about the issues. And I'm just like, I'm more like a stereotypical female in sitcoms where it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Although, for the like a triple and retard is where I draw the line. But the other words, like disabled, impaired, like hanging up, I don't care as long as you treat me nicely, like as long as you treat me with respect and dignity. That is all I want. Call me whatever you like. just treat me with respect and dignity.
Well,
Like,
and I think that there's this feeling of like, I can't access someone if I don't know which kid gloves to put on. It's like I'm
exactly.
caught behind a glass pane where I can't reach you because I don't know how to greet you initially. And then there's this, and I've experienced it on both sides, but yes, I think especially with the disabled community who, so for the audience, I have Crohn's disease and we can get into whether I consider myself disabled or not, but um and how I feel about that within the community. But as far as people who have disabilities that I don't have any way to relate to, that are kind of in a very protected category. So like there's I spoke with somebody who had on the show, it's a great episode. He has a stutter, but he was talking about what you and I have talked about before with hierarchy, but that there are certain protected categories that are super legitimized, and they have like
Mhm.
all these guards around them, you know, be it the syntax, be it that this is how you're supposed to do all these things. And then there are other communities that sort of slip through that may have really needed some help or some protecting or whatever. But regardless, at least the ones that are highly represented and highly protected, I find that sometimes it's hard to access because I don't know how to get in the house. I don't know how to come over to your house for tea because I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm welcome. And so I don't ask because I'm embarrassed. So, you know, I think that that is a thing that can happen. Um I I don't know how many, at least personally, I don't know how many opportunities there were to make friends or to do advocacy that were actually actively interrupted by like a hesitance on my part. Um, Maybe there were friendships that I just didn't know how to relate to somebody and I didn't like reach out. I don't think so. I think I've anyone in my proximity that was, you know, there I've been open with, but I I think energetically, on a communal level, perhaps, it has felt harder to reach the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, and I felt this with my feminist teachers too, because I have a degree in feminism. Don't worry, I have a great relationship with my dad. Um, uh,
I could
yeah,
make the same joke about myself, so I'm
um,
laughing.
um, but I just, I found that too, where it's like, it's functioning from so much trauma that I think people are just like, don't touch me, because they just don't want to be, like, the main argument when I said, why don't we have more able-bodied, neurotypical people in here if we want the help? And because I came in as a naive newbie, and I was just like, we can talk to them. I talk to people all the time, and the poor other members were like, she's a queen. It was like I'm saying, let's go straight into the wolf gang. Let's go straight into like the the forest with all the cobwebs. Like, it was just, like, I was asking them to jump straight into the fire, essentially. And I do apologize for that now, because I do realize that was very triggering. I was just scaring them to no end. But at the same time, maybe if we're having groups like that, and they've been in the groups for years, maybe we should take a hiatus and do what we need to do. Get a life coach, go to therapy, or deal with our crud in this in any way that actually works for us. Because this to function from trauma as a form of advocacy isn't helping. We need to advocate from a place of healing, not trauma. Because when you function from trauma, which I have done, I'm still in the healing process. But when I function from trauma, everything looks like a spear. Everything looks like the forest when Snow White is running away and she's seeing like these crocodiles and scary things, and when the camera pulls out, it's just the forest. It's just the animals looking at her like, ooh, what's that? Like, but to her at the time, because she was fearful, everything seemed really spooky and scary and terrifying. And I think that's an image that advocacy groups can take away, is that if we function from healing, we actually see the support network around us. We actually see the help that is there. But if we function from trauma, every single handout is going to seem like a pair of handcuffs that are ready to drag us away and take control, you know? And it's just like, yeah, we gotta deal with our crap. But that's one thing I could leave, is if you've got a cause that you really want to deal with, make sure you're coming from a place when you talk of healing, of hope, of, you this is what we can do to improve. This is what the life I want right now, and I need your help to get there because I can't do it myself. That is much more inspiring. That is much more helpful than in World War II, people with disabilities were killed. We were sterilized, we were this, we were that. Like, that is terrifying. The person just walks away like, oh my god, I need a cat video, like, I just need something to sorry, but what I mean, like, just something really goofy. Like, they don't want to think about what you just said. They just want to get away from it as far as possible. But if you come up to somebody and go, hey, we are really trying to create a better world, one where people's lives with disabilities are worth living, one where we have security, one where we have the right to be happy, the finances to take care of ourselves. Can you help me do that? That's a lot better than, like I said, scanning the pens off them. Because deep down, we're all just chilling, and even adults can be scared by a scary movie. I mean, I think the reason we're so panicked nowadays is the news keeps pushing all these scary movies on us, and we don't have the emotional capacity, and we never should to carry that negativity so much so fast. But what's your view?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think because trauma is upsetting to everyone. And sometimes when we've lived with the knowledge of what's happened to ourselves or our communities for a long time, there's a comfortability almost with the sound of what happened. And with other people, they're still in a shock mode, right? Like, because especially if they're empathetic, especially if they care, they're like, their nervous system's now like totally knocked off track. And it's like, how do I even respond to this or think about this or process this or then even begin to help you because now I just got shot by the arrow. So I think it's very important for people to experience stories and truth and pain and hear what has happened and is happening in places. But I think that when we tell our stories, it is valuable to think, what is this person on the other child? Imagine them like a little child on the other side, imagine them like a little child. What are they really able to process at first if they've never come across this before? And how would I need to speak with them in what kind of tone? And how would they be able to carry this and it matter to them? And it's sort of an unfortunate reality. I think there's that idea out there of like, well, I don't want to have to make sure that I sugarcoat my story so that you can swallow it. But it's like, I'm sorry, that's human nature. On some level, the
Yeah.
listener is going to have a hard time if you attack them. They're going to have a hard time if they're suddenly overwhelmed by information they didn't know, in a way that is sort of deliberately aggressive. I mean, there's just lots of different ways that, yeah, I certainly, and I've been guilty of in my personal life, probably,
Yeah.
throwing things at people because, I wanted a reaction or something and didn't really think through what could have been helped. Yeah. Well, what I want to ask you before we leave is there anything that you would say very honestly that you've never said to the able-bodied community before?
Something that I've never said. Stop putting your limitations on me, especially when I offer my help as a crisis worker, life coach. Don't don't tell me, oh, you've had so much already done. That's not my problem. That is your limitation being placed on me, and I would just ask people to, before they say anything, before they type anything, ask themselves, am I really caring about her ability, or am I putting my limitation on her so I don't have to deal with mine? You know, that's the thing
Mic
I would.
drop. Wow, thank you for that. And thank you for this amazing discussion. I feel pretty transformed, honestly. I'm just so thrilled to have had you on here and be able to speak to you.
Thank you very much.